This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Buying a car shouldn't eat up your week. That's why Carvana made it convenient. Car buying that fits around your life, not the other way around. You can get pre-qualified for an auto loan in just a couple of minutes and browse thousands of quality car options, all within your terms, all online, all on your schedule. Turn car buying into a few clicks and not a full week's endeavor. Finance and buy your car at your convenience on Carvana. Financing subject to credit approval. Additional terms and conditions may apply.
At Chipotle, we also have a playlist. Guacamole as it's being hand-mashed. The sizzle of adobo chicken on the grill. The chopping of onions and cilantro. We call our playlist Real. Order now. Chipotle. For real.
The Conjuring Last Rites. On September 5th.
Come down here, I need your help! Hooray!
The Conjuring Last Rites. Only in theaters September 5th. Rated R.
EVO.
This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
So, Jeff, do you ever play any sports in school?
A little bit.
What kind? Do you remember?
Yeah, the first thing I played was it's something called buzkashi.
God bless you.
Yeah, it's buzkashi. You know, when you probably played like in elementary school, right? When you it's on horseback and you have the idea is to drag a goat.
You had me at horseback.
Yeah. You know, the idea is to drop a goat in a goal. It's a dead goat, so it's not like it. Yeah, it's not like it. What about you?
They didn't have that in New York when I was a kid.
What'd you play?
Well, we played a little bit of dodgeball, but we called it Russian roulette. And oddly enough, the thing we played most during PE was soccer.
How long ago was that?
A million years ago. I mean, what, 70, maybe 69?
Yeah.
68?
Yeah, I don't remember there being much soccer around when I was I'm a little older than you, of course, but yeah, I don't remember soccer till much later. That might just be because I didn't care.
Yeah, I mean, when we moved to Florida from New York, it was a little bit of flag football, but still, you know, mainly soccer, probably because it's cheap. There's one ball, put a bunch of kids on a lawn, let them kick and scream at each other.
That makes sense. Do you remember like women's girls sports?
I mean, they played, it was, you know, co-ed. You know, they didn't really break it up back then.
So like if you played softball, there were girls on the team?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But it's amazing how popular soccer has become.
Oh, I know. You remember we were kids growing up in Miami. Until the Dolphins, there was no professional sports team at all.
Yeah.
And now Inter Miami won the World Cup, and it has the most famous player in the world.
Yeah, and these guys make a lot of money now.
Oh, my God. Yeah, and as you guys are going to see, the collectibles are off the charts.
Yeah. Why are we talking about sports or soccer today, Jeff? Or a soccer ball?
Well, we weren't talking about soccer balls, but we are going to be talking about not just any soccer ball, but a soccer ball that's been to space and back.
Hi, I'm Bruce.
And I'm Jeff. Welcome to Taboo Treasures, a weekly podcast that explores the human obsession with gathering and collecting not just objects of value, but objects of extreme rarity and infamy.
Today's episode, Second Chance Soccer Ball. In the spirit of us usually not having any idea about what we're talking about, today we kind of have a clue.
Kind of. I think, well, let's say we've heard of it, right?
Yeah, I've heard of soccer.
Right. So
because of Ted Lasso.
That's right. Everybody knows it's the most popular, or most people know it's the most popular sport in the world.
Yeah.
But we were just blown away by where other sports rank.
Yeah, I mean, soccer's number one. There's no
right
in the world. There's no change.
And honestly, cricket at number two. You know, because if India is not that big a shock.
Have you ever tried to understand cricket?
Yes, I have tried to understand it.
And do you understand it?
No. When I lived in England, I got totally addicted to it. I have absolutely no idea what it is.
They're probably still playing the same game that you saw in England. When those
the same match. Yeah, I don't know. I think they might have changed the rules, but yeah, matches went on for
days, right?
At least. Yeah.
And then there's field hockey, which is what?
Yeah, that's a surprising one. It's kind of like lacrosse.
Yeah.
But without nets, and it's
surprised it's so popular.
Yeah. I don't know anybody who watches field hockey.
Those guys aren't making money.
No. And of course, tennis and volleyball and all that stuff. Yeah.
And then there's table tennis, or as we all know it as ping pong,
which is dominated by the Chinese, which is especially interesting because ping pong sounds a lot more Chinese than table tennis. Am I going to get in trouble for that?
I don't know.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, ping pong.
Ping pong, yeah. I wonder, we should find out how it got its name.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Chinese didn't come up with table tennis.
But I bet you the Americans came up with ping pong. And then, the ones that we're familiar with, basketball and baseball, are what, kind of low on this list?
Yeah, depending on the list. We've seen, they vary a little, but we've seen in the top 10 basketball, baseball, and then football as the bottom three.
Yeah.
And
then there's rugby and golf, but
which are international sports. But we forget, the craziness about our sports here.
Yeah.
We forget that there aren't that many of us compared to
the world. Yeah. I mean, they're trying. The NFL's trying to make football popular everywhere.
Oh, such a nightmare having to watch games in the middle of the night.
Yeah. But some people, they go see them. These stadiums get packed.
Yeah, they go crazy. They go crazy for it. Well, fuck them. It's ours.
It's ours. That's our sport. Leave it alone. We're going to talk a little bit about soccer now. Here's a little history. Soccer has been around in one form or another for thousands of years. So there's a popular misconception that it predated American football by a long time. But that's not exactly true. It wasn't until the mid-19th century that the rules were consolidated. And one of the reasons they did this was to distinguish themselves from other much cooler games like rugby. Anyway, that's when the game took the shape that we recognize today as soccer and the rest of the world calls football.
And the original governing body, I guess still, of soccer was the Football Association. And they called the game association football, and soccer became the popular shortened slang term for association football, which, what? If you wanted to shorten the word animation, would you call it mater? Or call consultation tater?
Yeah.
Anyway, they eventually figured out that all you had to do is kick the ball around, so I guess football is probably a good word for it.
So American football was invented only a few years later, and evidently they just kicked the ball then, like soccer and rugby. Then 125 years later, they changed the rules, and now they throw the ball, and they catch the ball, and then they kick the ball, but it's still called football. What should we change the name to? Throw
ball.
Throw ball.
Well, until we figure out the new name, for the rest of the world, making jokes about calling it football is practically a cottage industry. But we say, shut up, rest of the world. Football is what you play after fighter jets roar by overhead and red, white, and blue smoke bombs go off and popular singers add 37,000 notes to the national anthem and parachutists land on the 50 fucking yard line.
America, fuck yeah.
Probably get a copyright hit for that.
That's okay. I'd love to get sued by those guys. I mean, soccer's just kind of chasing a ball around a big lawn and kicking it into nets. Well, those guys are pretty good athletes. So we're going to just call it soccer today because all we really care about is the shirts. So fuck you, rest of the world.
We'll come back to the kicky game later, but since our main subject today isn't just any soccer ball, we're going to get into a little about its first journey.
On the morning of June 24th, 1986, on a 4.4 million pound launch pad assembly inside a space shuttle, inside a crew cabin, inside a locker, inside a black duffel bag, was a soccer ball. When an astronaut named Ellison Onizuka brought it aboard, it was just a ball, but at 11:30 that morning, it became a piece of history.
The story begins at Clear Lake High School in Houston, where Ellison's daughter Janelle played soccer. The week before the launch, Janelle passed a soccer ball around to her teammates. It started out as a cheap old no-name practice ball, but this one was going to space with her father, Ellison. The whole team signed their names, and good luck, shuttle crew.
On the morning of the launch, Janelle and the other kids at Clear Lake were gathered around a TV at school to watch the live broadcast, and there was another school where the students were just as excited. The school was in Concord, New Hampshire, and their social studies teacher was about to become the first civilian to ever be a part of a space mission.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Simple question. Why you?
It's really hard to say. There were 10 people. We were such a cohesive group. I think any one of us would have done a really good job.
Has it all hit you yet?
No, I don't think so. I still can't believe that I'm going to actually be going into that shuttle.
Maybe just a little bit of fright, too?
Not yet. Maybe when I'm strapped in and those rockets are going off underneath me, there will be.
I read where you said you wanted to demystify space.
I want the students to get a little bit of ownership. I want them to feel that they're part of the space age because they're the future and their children or grandchildren are going to be pioneering that. So I really hope to bring an ordinary person's perspective to this.
Of course, that was Krista McAuliffe. And like the others on the shuttle, she died tragically 73 seconds after the launch when Challenger broke apart. We'll come back to Ms. McAuliffe later.
And that brings us to the incredible women of the space program. NASA wouldn't have had a lot of its successes without the dedication, innovation, and courage of hundreds of women that worked in the space program. Hidden Figures is a terrific movie about 3 black women who have been forgotten by history until Hollywood brought them the attention they deserved for decades. Without these 3 women, the story of NASA would be completely different.
Absolutely. And as tough as things can be today for women of color, the gender and racial challenges they had to overcome just to get proper educations, much less to become crucial scientific and mathematical contributors to the space program, is almost impossible to comprehend.
Yeah, we'll come back to the amazing women in the movie, but we're also going to pick up a little where the movie left off by talking about a few more incredible women at NASA and its predecessor, NACA, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. Again, on top of how tough the obvious racial issues were, you have to keep in mind that this was an area that was even more dominated by men than most other fields in the early days. Women were secretaries, not scientists.
Yeah. The first woman on our list is the first woman engineer at NACA, Kitty O'Brien Joyner. She began her career in '39 and had to sue the University of Virginia just to get into a men-only program. Eventually, she got a degree, and at NASA, she helped research and design wind tunnels and wind turbines, which is something I used to do. I used to design. Did you know I used to design wind turbines?
Yeah, you quit that to do this podcast.
Yeah, the podcast offer came in. What was I supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, seriously. Next is Dorothy Vaughan, a black woman who was featured in Hidden Figures. Vaughan was hired by NACA in 1943 as a computer at the height of segregation. At the time, a computer was actually a person who did mathematical computations using the technology of the time, like slide rules. Even in an environment you'd think might be more evolved, Vaughan and other women of color worked in a separate part of the building and were called the West Area Computing Unit. The only whites were the supervisors, of course.
Mary Jackson is one of the black women who was also featured in Hidden Figures, and she also had to fight to get an education in the time of segregation. Her affinity for math got her special permission to take a University of Virginia math and physics class while she was still going to a segregated high school.
Yeah, Jackson got a dual degree in physical science and mathematics from Hampton Institute in 1942 and got hired at NACA in 1951. She was such a good research mathematician that they called her the human computer. Even so, Jackson was held back by Jim Crow policies. But fortunately, rather than quitting, a supervisor saw what she was going through and hired her to work directly under him. And that's how Mary Jackson became the first black female engineer at NASA.
When John Glenn was to be the first astronaut to go up into the atmosphere and come back, and they wanted him to come back in a special place, and that was what I did. I computed his trajectory. And from then on, anytime they were going to compute trajectories, they were given mostly all of them to Mount Branch, and I did most of the work on those by hand. But when he got ready to go up, he said, call her. And if she says the computer's right, I'll take it.
That was Katherine Goebel Johnson, the third black woman on our list and also featured in the movie. Johnson was another human computer at NACA in 1953 who had to endure the same awful gender and racial inequalities as Vaughn and Jackson by, among other things, being segregated into that West Area Computing Unit.
But this is unbelievable. She was such a badass that after she was absorbed into the NASA program, she calculated the trajectories for John Glenn and Alan Shepard's flights. That's the reference to Glenn that she made in the clip. Glenn was so impressed by Johnson's reputation that he personally asked her to check the computer's results. She was a computer pioneer, and she also calculated the trajectory of the Apollo 11 moon mission in 1969. She got a couple of prestigious awards, but in 2015, she was finally recognized properly with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and in 2019, with the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian award in America. You ever get one of those, Jeff?
Nancy Roma is next on the list. She earned a doctorate in astronomy from the University of Chicago and then worked at the Yerkes Observatory in Chicago before she was hired by NASA and became their first chief of astronomy in 1959. Not just the first woman, the first chief. She was so obsessed with the idea of launching a telescope into outer space to get a new view of objects never seen before that she became known as the mother of the Hubble telescope. And she kept working on it even after she retired from NASA. It was so cool. When she was 65, she actually got to see the thing launched in 1990.
Oh, cool lady. So we don't have the time to list even a fraction of the women who have been an integral and an indispensable part of NASA over the years. But we have to spend a little time on a few of the women who actually went to space. The first is Sally Ride. Sally Ride was a teacher and a children's author and the first female astronaut in history. Later on, she founded a company called Sally Ride Science to help women in fields dominated by men and to show the benefits of diversity. Uh-oh.
No.
Diversity.
Damn you, women in space. On a much, much sadder note, two female space pioneers, Krista McAuliffe, who we spoke about earlier, and Judith Resnick, were on the Challenger mission. The press understandably gave McAuliffe the bulk of the coverage because she was a high school social studies teacher and the first woman who wasn't an astronaut to go on a space mission. But while Resnick didn't get as much attention, she was actually a mission specialist who'd flown several missions on the shuttle.
After several women have been on space missions, Dr. Mae Jemison became the first black woman astronaut. There's a great story about her.
Well, okay, I'm going to tell it all right now, okay? I was very much a Star Trek fan, and I like to say that I watched in the 60s when it first came on, so I go way back. And I thought the show was very wonderful because it was one of the first programs that had all kinds of ethnic groups together from the United States. We also had a program where it put women in non-traditional roles. So Lieutenant Uhura was maybe the first woman that you saw every day or every week on television who worked in a technical field. And so that was very exciting. And also, she was African, which was a very different kind of feel from television back then. So I was very much liked Lieutenant Uhura, and she was a very wonderful person for me. I since met Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek, and we've become friends. She also was very instrumental in recruiting the first women and minority astronauts for NASA back in the 1970s when they started the Space Shuttle program. And then to finish the whole story off and go full circle, I appeared on Star Trek. In 1993 on an episode called Second Chances where there were two Rikers. I had a real small part.
Phase distortion is dropping. The next transport window opens in 42 seconds.
How long will we have, Lieutenant?
36 minutes, sir.
We are losing time. Lieutenant Riker should be here.
So she'll go down not only as the first black woman to be launched into space, she's the only real astronaut to ever appear on an episode of Star Trek series. That's too cool.
That's too cool.
Yeah.
Last on our list is the first woman who ever piloted a space shuttle, Eileen M. Collins, in 1995. She was also the first woman to command a shuttle mission and was in charge of the Columbia mission that deployed the Chandra X-ray Observatory. Gee, I feel like I've done so much with my life.
So, ladies, who would you rather be with? David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, or Lionel Messi?
And guys, which one would you rather be? Let us know by emailing us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com or message us at Taboo Treasures on Instagram and TikTok.
This episode is brought to you by Pacifico. Here's a story you've probably never heard. Legend has it, decades ago, a couple surfers went down to Mexico in search of epic swells, but they found something unexpected instead. It was still crisp, lively, and smooth, but it had nothing to do with waves. It was Pacifico, a delicious Mexican lager. It's like it was brewed to be discovered. Pacifico, find your own way. 21 plus, discover responsibly. Pacifico Clara Beer, imported by Crown Import, Chicago, Illinois.
Shopping is hard.
I can never find anything in my size.
I don't even know my size.
I buy my clothes the same place I buy my groceries.
There's a better way. Make it easy with Stitch Fix. Just share your size, style, budget, and done. Your personal stylist sends pieces picked just for you.
That was easy.
Stitch Fix. Online personal styling for everyone. Free shipping and returns. No subscription required. Get started today at stitchfix.com.
Buenos dias! Café Bustelo espresso-styled iced coffee is hitting refrigerators with a cold front that'll sweep through your senses. So keep the coffee pours long and the cold sip slow. Café Bustelo está aquí.
No time, no problem. Bobbi Brown's Longwear Cream Shadow Stick works as fast as you do. So, no surprise, it's the #1 eyeshadow stick in the U.S. Whether you're heading to the office, school drop-off, or for days that blend into nights, one swipe, and your shadow is set for 24 hours. Because doing your makeup shouldn't take an hour. And let's be real, who has that kind of time? Now available in new shades. Discover them all at Sephora.
When you think of real danger in sports, you generally think like racing or boxing, not soccer, but you'd be wrong.
Oh, yeah. This is far and away my favorite part of this podcast. So we'll start out with one that's pretty tame by this section standards, meaning the only thing that happened to the player was he got killed. There was this Algerian club called JS Kabylie that lost a match to a team called USM Algiers. When Kabylie was walking off the field after the game, the fans started throwing rocks at him, and sure enough, this guy who had scored the only goal for Kabylie was hit in the head by a rock and died.
Stepping things up a bit, there was a Colombian soccer player in the 90s named Andres Escobar. He got blamed for the Colombia team's elimination in the 1994 World Cup because he accidentally kicked the ball into his own goal and gave a point to South America. And the fucking fans went nuts. But after the game, he was like, hey, life does not end here. But turns out he was wrong by about a week and a half when he got shot and killed in a bar. There's the usual speculation about whether it was a crazy fan or disgruntled bettors or whatever, but the moral of the story is pretty clear. If you play soccer in Colombia, don't kick the ball in your own goal.
Well, I don't know which is worse, the first two, but this one's definitely worse than those. I love this one. An official at a local soccer game in Brazil got into a fight on the field with some of the other team's players, of course. Naturally enough, for a ref in a soccer match, he pulled out a knife and stabbed a player to death.
Wow.
But we're just getting started. So, in team sports, you've heard of emptying the bench when everybody all the players rush out onto the field and start fighting. But this was more like emptying the stadium. The friends and the family of this guy stormed the ref, and first... It's a soccer game. First they cut off his legs, wow. Then they cut off his head, then they stuck his head on a pike in the center of the field, which, okay, but did anyone ask why there was a fucking pike in the middle of a soccer field?
Wow, that's nuts, man.
I love that one.
But of course we had to save the best for last. The award for the soccer team most likely to torture, beat, imprison, and slaughter its own players goes to Iraq's very own national soccer team. which was run by everyone's favorite Hussein brother, Uday. You could be a hero on the field, but if you did something to piss off Uday, he'd get pretty medical textbook on you. We're serious. We're serious Dolphin fans, but even we hardly ever wanted to kill somebody, although
sometimes.
Once in a while we would.
We never actually go through with it.
No, we wouldn't.
Yasser Abdul-Latif, the captain of the team, once got a red card for hitting a ref, which, that's a bad thing. So he was flogged with electric cables in 2-hour increments for 4 hours and then thrown in prison, where Uday would stop by occasionally to piss on his head.
Wow. And so evidently Uday would call down to the locker room at halftime and threaten to cut off the players' legs and feed them to ravenous dogs. He had players executed. He'd have them dragged shirtless on concrete till it tore off all their skin. And in 2004, the Iraqi Olympic Committee found, ready for this, whips, vices, metal masks, and Iron Maiden. And an Iron Maiden.
You know what an Iron Maiden is? I mean, it's a fucking medieval torture device full of spikes that you put someone in.
In the fucking locker room.
In the locker room, yeah.
No one even knows how many of these poor bastards were executed, but apparently they were the lucky ones. Take that, hang gliding. What do you think is more dangerous?
Hang gliding or soccer?
No, soccer or space program.
Well, if you're playing in Iraq, I'd rather take my chances on the 4.4 million pound.
I'm sure more people died playing soccer than in space. Unlike most of the other collectibles we talk about, soccer balls have surprisingly little value compared to the game balls of other sports, especially given the magnitude of its appeal and the wild mania over its biggest stars. For example, the most expensive collectible soccer ball we could find other than ours go for around $2,000. Excluding the ones that are made out of unobtainium-encrusted baby skins, even basketballs can go for more than $15,000. And there are some pretty valuable American footballs.
Or footballs, as normal American people call them. But one thing we're not going to talk about too much is the baseball stuff. There are like 10 billion expert podcasts dedicated to baseball collectibles, and since we're not actually experts on anything, but some of the baseball stuff's just too bonkers not to mention.
Yeah, like the roided up Mark McGwire 70th home run ball went for $3 million.
I just like that it's not Mark McGwire who was roided up, it's the roided up.
I don't know why, but why was there a controversy when the guy hit home run balls when he had hemorrhoids?
I'm not sure how to segue into the next one, but it's, Shohei Ohtani is a good example on the Dodgers. First guy to ever steal 50 bases and hit 50 home runs in the same season, but $4.5 million for the fucking baseball.
And the Honus Wagner card for $7.2 million.
Oh yeah, cards are even worse. I think the 52 Mickey Mantle is the most. I think $12.6 million.
I bet you Brandon would pay $12.6 million for that card if he could.
Is he like that?
He's a Yankees guy.
A friend of ours.
Yeah.
Oh.
A friend of ours. He's our boss.
He used to be our friend. Now we work for him. Yeah, I was going to repeat a George Carlin line, and then I realized that there might be some people out there who are younger than 70 who've never heard of him. But George Carlin was an amazing comic. Please go to YouTube. Yeah. He said the greatest thing about baseball cards. He said, if you're a kid, baseball cards are keepsakes of your heroes. If you're a grown man, baseball cards are pictures of men. So we're going to compare collectibles in the next couple of segments. We're going to compare soccer collectibles to space collectibles.
Yep.
And because the soccer balls themselves don't have great value, and we spent a fair amount of time on NASA and the space program, we're going to combine other soccer collectibles with a category so cool we didn't even know existed, space memorabilia.
Yeah, we figured stuff that had been to space would have great value to niche collectors, but man, we were wrong. You may already know about this, but we were amazed that there are clubs where people buy and trade space memorabilia, websites, and even auction houses who do nothing but buy and sell the stuff. It never occurred to us that some of these things would ever become available to the public.
Even with that said, some of the most simple, basic items on the soccer list make collecting these incredible memorabilia from space look like collecting matchbook covers. We'll start with the soccer list to give you a baseline for the values. Jumping right in, number 5 is actually pretty cool. The FA Cup is the oldest competition in world football, and this is the first FA Cup trophy. Whoever's got it now wants to be anonymous, but we know he paid $760,000 for it in 2020.
Number 4 is one of our favorites. It's Lionel Messi. Messi.
He's like the most famous human being on the planet,
I
dude.
don't fucking follow it. Lionel Messi is the biggest name in soccer, and I don't know his name, which makes him the biggest name in sports. And his first ever contract with Barcelona was written on a napkin he signed in 2000. Now the napkin's worth about $800,000.
That's great that someone saved it.
Yeah, they blow their nose in it or something.
Number 3 is pretty cool, too. The Sheffield Football Club rule book is considered to be the oldest set of rules and regulations for soccer. It was written in 1859, and it's worth almost $1 million.
Lionel Messi has 2 items in the top 5. At number 2 is a set of 6 shirts from the World Cup in Qatar in 2022. In spite of his celebrity for all those years, it was the first World Cup he ever won. And those shirts sold for $6 million. That's $1 million for a shirt with sweat and dirt on it.
If you think $1 million is a lot for a shirt, and you kind of should, get ready for this one.
Maradona just walked away from Huddle then. Valdano, out and Maradona! They're appealing for offside. The ball came back off the foot of Steve Hodge, and Maradona gives Argentina the lead. The England players protesting to the referee. At what point was he offside? Or was it a use of the hand that England are complaining about?
The most expensive soccer memorabilia is a shirt worn by Diego Maradona, which I'm sure is known to soccer fans all over the world. It's known as the Hand of God shirt because of a hand penalty that wasn't called that resulted in Maradona making the first goal of the FIFA World Cup in '86. Hard to say this out loud, but in 2022, someone paid almost $7.5 million for this fucking shirt.
Wow. So now we're going to start with the space collectibles. Number 5 is the navigational chart from Apollo 11. This is the chart Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin used to determine their exact position on the moon's surface during the Apollo 11 mission. In 2009, it sold for $218,000.
So cool. Alexei Leonidov's K-Apollo-Soyuz spacesuit is number 4. In March of 1965, Leonov was the first man ever to conduct a spacewalk. He was wearing this suit when he stepped outside of the Voskhod 2 spacecraft for over 12 minutes. How cool is this shit? The spacesuit sold for $242,000 in May of 2011.
Number 3 is the Attitude Control joystick from the Falcon lunar module of Apollo 15. This is a piece of flight control equipment that controlled the moon landing of Apollo 15. It activated rocket engines and worked with the semi-automatic onboard computers, steering calculations, and engine thrusts on command. It spent over 66 hours on the moon's surface inside the Falcon and sold for $327,000 in December of 2011.
I think that's my favorite one, but I think your favorite one is Jim Lovell's notebook from Apollo 13, right?
Yeah.
The malfunction during the Apollo 13 mission is the stuff of legends, of course, the movie about it starring Tom Hanks. But this is the notebook, the actual notebook that Jim Lovell used to make those improvised calculations that got him all back safely. Lovell ended up with it, and it was sold from his personal collection in December of 2011 for about $390,000.
And number 1 is the Vostok 3KA-2 test space capsule. We want to buy all this stuff. You can buy every bit of this by selling one Messi shirt.
It's unbelievable.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not the one that Russian astronaut Yuri Gagarin flew to become the first man in space. It's even cooler. It's the test craft for that mission, and rather than a person, it took up, Jeff, I can't pronounce this word.
Try it.
Zvezhdakov.
Zvezhdachka.
What was it?
Zvezdochka, the dog.
That was the dog. The dog and the dummy made a single orbit of Earth. But maybe the most amazing thing is that Gagarin went up only 3 weeks after it landed, making him the first man in space.
You'll be happy to learn that Zvezdochka, the dog, and his dummy co-pilot were recovered safely. The capsule sold at Sotheby's, which is pretty weird on its own. Imagine you go to Sotheby's auction and you're looking at the catalog and, oh, it's the first spacecraft to ever be launched into space. Anyway, it sold in April of 2011 for $2.9 million, which just seems like a hell of a deal today.
And that brings us to today's subject, the second chance soccer ball.
Ellison Onizuka's duffel bag was recovered in the area of the Challenger crash, and one of the few items that survived intact was that Clear Lake High School soccer ball. Years after all the investigations were over, NASA asked his wife, Lorna, if she'd like to have it back. So, as you can imagine, she was just shocked that it still existed. And they gave it to her, and she, in turn, gave it back to the Clear Lake High School in an emotional ceremony. Not long after that, an astronaut friend of the principal stopped by the school and asked if there was anything at the school she wanted him to take to space, and she did.
Our soccer ball's first trip to space was a tragedy, but it got a second chance when NASA's Mission 49 left the Earth for the International Space Station 27 years later. It spent 173 days in space and orbited the Earth almost 3,000 times. On April 10, 2017, it returned to Earth all worn and flaked. Today it's not in a locker at NASA, it's not even in a museum. That Challenger soccer ball lives among the children and the grandchildren of the girls of the Clear Lake soccer team who signed it in Houston, Texas, 4 miles from Mission Control, where eventually thousands of students will see it and learn its history, and where now hundreds of students, including Ellison's grandchildren, still see it every day.
We said earlier that among collectible sports memorabilia, soccer balls don't hold much interest or have much value. But the Second Chance Challenger soccer ball's journey makes it a more important part of history than any piece of sports memorabilia could ever be. And sure, it's not for sale. But what do you think it'd be worth to a collector?
Well, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Taboo Treasures. We really hope you liked that episode. It was one of our favorites. Please share your thoughts with us. Email us at tabootreasures@evocreative.com or message us at Taboo Treasures on Instagram and TikTok.
Don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and tell a friend about Taboo Treasures, especially the one who collects weird stuff in their basement.
That would be me. From EVO, Taboo Treasures is produced by Bruce Whitkin and Jeff Levine. Executive producer Brandon Morgan. Music by the Lonely Bulls.